Everything I do right here might look a little bit weird, especially the things on the right. But basically what I'm doing is I'm taking dimensions from the photo of the poster and scaling it up by a certain scale factor. I think it's like 1.125. But basically with the scale, you scale it up and then get more or less accurate dimensions. On the x-axis, this panel is 39.37 inches long, and laterally it is 16.778. So you can kind of just double check your math when you glue it all up to make sure it's all good to go. This is what it was in CAD. So you can use this to tape up the first edge. And we can definitely see that this error multiplies. Why does it multiply, you may ask? Because it can, I may answer. Every single intersection you see here is actually 0.05 inches that it's off by. And then that's doubled, because there are two of them, for every single piece of paper. So there's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So in the end, this will be off by 0.5 inches, or half an inch. Half an inch is about this much, which doesn't look like a lot, but it will definitely mess up all of our tolerances for the Fusion 360 part. Ideally, I'd have a magical CNC mill that's like 4 feet by 8 feet, and I could cut everything with computer-like accuracy, but we're gonna go with this. I cut all of these edges and taped it up, and now let's measure it. Ah, yes, on the money. Well, kind of. It's now 39.3. Oh, what? I thought it needed to be 39.7, but it needed to be 39.37. So that's actually perfect. Got a little worried. It is close enough. Wonderful. I'm gonna go cut off the 0.05 inches on each side, and go from there. Everything is trying to ruin my audio today. The cars just keep zooming by. Now the gutters are falling down. I don't even know. Speak of the devil. This thing is called like a butcher paper thing, but I think they should call it a finger guillotine. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut from the left bottom. So the left side and the bottom side, 0.05 inches, and it'll show you where 0.5 inches is, 0.05, sorry, because it's where the ink stops. It's the printer margin. So this one we don't have to cut at all because there's no need to. It's the far left side, so you don't have to cut here, but we do need to cut on the bottom. So you can line it up. Wonderful. Whoa, 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 Mr. Bob, hold it right there. So if you open a file, this is just an older file, the section 1 cutouts, and you go to print, you can have two settings right here that'll help you a ton. Cut marks and labels. So what cut marks does is it basically makes marks for the cut. It's pretty self-explanatory how they do these. And labels makes labels. So if we were to print this, I'll print it to a PDF to not waste paper. If we were to print it, it would look like this.
Okay, if we were to print it in real life, each paper would look like this. Here you have these little cut marks right here to help you basically guide your cutter so you can cut easily. And you can also use those to align the papers, just kind of align the X's and you'll be good to go. And you also have this label right here that says, I think it's the column and row it's on, as well as the time you printed it, because that's obviously something you need to know. But over here, those are just two helpful settings that can save you a lot of time.
That was a little bit lengthy of a process to cut it all, so I'm going to make a temporary marking right where it stopped against the blade, just so I can align things up easier next time. So this piece is all the way done. Now this piece, we need to cut the bottom. Wonderful. In the future we would tape these together and it'd be all good to go. The markings on this board come in really handy when there's an edge that isn't marked deliberately, because you have this mark right here. You can line it up and cut, and you know you're cutting 0.05 inches. You can kind of get it down to a system. It's pretty fun. So now we have all our pieces and we can put them together upstairs, and now we can tape them, knowing for sure there aren't any little annoying gaps. Sorry to bother any of you, but have you seen Peter? You know, the little one that got left behind probably? No? Oh, well, thanks for everything. I have a confession to make. Sometimes I just randomly turn on wireframe mode so that I feel like an engineer. Yeah. So, now we have this part. We can put the tape away, we don't need it anymore. And it looks like it just barely fits on this. There is probably 1/4 of an inch, or like 5 millimeters of clearance. This is insane. I'm really excited to cut this half of the Cessna 172, and let's get to it. One of the differences I'm gonna make when I do cut it is I'm gonna leave a little more slack on these holes right here, because I don't want this plywood to strip out. I'd rather be on the safe side. I don't think there are any fuses this close, so it shouldn't matter. But the tolerances start to get out of whack on the other side. Thanks for driving by. Let's remeasure it since I taped. Oh, here. I said I taped, I never said I taped well. Wow, plywood is actually getting so expensive that it might make sense to print this on big honkin' expensive paper. Since this sheet of plywood probably costs like $9 million right now, probably costs about $20 for this big of a sheet. I really want to be intentional about how I do everything. Okay, so it looks like height is a little tall. We'll have to figure that out. After all, I am your biggest fan. There's a lot of aligning, but basically I want to make sure that these yoke holes align with the other holes on this panel so that everything aligns and it's a big happy family. Also known as, I'm just basically destroying everything. There we go. Don't move a muscle. I say as I lift my entire arm up. This is confirmed good. Now I can place everything else accordingly. Sweet! I've decided to go off of these actual panels that will go in the Cessna 172 simulator, because these are the laser cut panels. I trust altimeter motives tolerances a lot more than taped paper, so we're gonna go with this. The cool thing about this is I can actually trace onto the board. So what we're gonna do is tape this down temporarily. I'm gonna go get some adhesive, or we can use glue for now. And then we can trace the piece we don't have. So let's go do that. Yep, I'm gonna have to edit that out. This panel right here is the altimeter motives instrument panel. I'll leave a link in the description below. And then this right hand panel right here is a custom made one. If you'd like to order a custom one, you can go to the contact page of altimetermotives.com and order one. You could probably say something like Captain Bob right side panel in the email. The opposite is true for this as it was for this. This side actually needs more space. This side needed less space to be squished a little. Engineering size E will print this entire paper on one paper, and you won't have to cut it all up like this in a jigsaw puzzle style fashion. So I definitely go with an engineering size E paper if you can to get everything full scale, but my budget is already ripping at the seams just thinking about buying plywood. So we're going to use this method right here, and that should do it. Remember what I said about noise? I'm gonna call the cops on that bird. We're gonna trace this one too. The really important part is that it's consistent. I'm gonna go insane. Okay, so we have this all traced out. Let's go ahead and cut it. I'm gonna trace this right here, just so we know it's the actual size, and we'll be good to go. Apparently you're not supposed to drop tools. What's up with that? Oh dear. Yet another $5 mistake. It does look kind of cool because when it impacted, it bent before it broke, so it's kind of bent like this. You know what? We can make this an opportunity to buy a broken jigsaw blade.
I got kind of sad when I broke my jigsaw blade, but we were pretty tight and we discovered that we could make something cool out of the situation. So I made this little sculpture right here. The base is made out of olive wood I got from a tree we cut down a few years ago. It's all dried, and I put some nice varnish on it. This part right here is actually the circuit breaker cutout we had to make, and you can kind of see the blade. Kind of reminds me of a skateboard ramp. I really like it, and I learned a lot about woodworking, so it's kind of fun because it's like you can take a bad situation and make it into a sculpture if you want. So yeah, there's an eBay listing in the description below. It'll be open for 10 days. I'm making the starting bid $2.93. That's the exact cost it takes to buy a jigsaw blade, so I thought that was perfectly fitting. My parents helped set up this auction, so it's going to be sold to the highest bidder, and you can have your very own actual part of the Cessna 172 project, like as a sculpture. So yeah, makes a good centerpiece and actually edge piece too. I honestly really like the design of it. I've put it on the roof of my shelf for a few days and it looks pretty cool. So go down into the link in the description below to get your very own piece of the Cessna 172 project. All of the proceeds from this auction thing will go to the Cessna 172 project. There is only one of these, so don't miss out. The auction is only 10 days. I'm gonna take my salesman hat off.
it's critical, C to the R to the ITAL, that you leave about 6.3 inches right here, a margin for the instruments. Not the instruments, the radio stack. It's a little more than 6.25 or 6.25, so just leave a little extra gap so that the avionics fit. It stinks to have an airplane without avionics. It's like you're flying a flight school trainer. I traced this out for the final time with pen, and it's time to go from there. Chop chop. I designed this all in CAD, but I don't know yet if it's good enough for real life, if that makes sense. I'm gonna trace out a few of these outer instruments to see how close I am to the edge. So I traced these all out, and we're actually super close. Maybe I could use some more distance up here, but this is all honestly solid. The main area of concern is up here. I'll probably end up drawing a line all the way across here, and then I think that'll save a lot of strength, because this is super thin right here. So this will look a little different, but I think it's a good change. I have this spray adhesive right here. I always buy the smallest spray adhesive because I don't use a lot, and I find that the nozzle always clogs over before I get the full can of use. So this was the cheapest one I could find, $10, which is kind of sad. All the rest was sold out. But you can just spray it onto the sheet of paper, press it on, and it stays. Or at least that's the hope. I'll make another tweak right here, just expanding this a little bit, probably, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. I'm pretty sure I talked about this already, but I keep a bunch of squawk sheets, like in the aviation industry with airliners and flight training. A lot of them keep squawk sheets, so if anything breaks, they can write it down and go from there, make sure it gets fixed. So a flight school could be like, left wheel missing, fixed before next flight. They'd be like, okay, yeah, we should probably ground it. Wait, oh no, they took it flying, did they? That was supposed to be a joke. I can measure right here and say the new one is 1/4 of an inch left. The top is 0.75 down. Then there's also a connecting line. I'll write that in. And yeah, that's our squawks. I can fix this in the CAD. And I also want to include dimensions and radiuses. Radii. I would like to point out this is actually pronounced radizelium. But yeah. Okay, so all of these corners I think are 0.75 inches, so we can go drill those. Oh. Close. Ooh, I think that one's the best so far. So now we have all 2, 4, 6, 7 corner holes drilled, and these corner holes fulfill 2 purposes. Actually, I guess 3, because 1, they look pretty cool. 2, they create sawdust. 3, they serve as an entry point. And 4, they serve as a radius for the holes. I won't have to cut that with the jigsaw. So I guess they fulfill 4, because they create sawdust. I need to stop making so many jokes. Okay, so my CAD drawing I took at face value, and I assumed all of the screw positions were correct and perfect without checking. The ones I made over here are correct because I made them. It looks like they just randomly added a few screws, which don't exist. And this screw doesn't exist either. What I'll do is turn these into construction geometry so I don't lose them if we want to add them back. But we're not going to have them for now. Ooh, airplane. Where was I? Oh yeah, this screw doesn't exist either on the Cessna 172R. And there are some screws right here. There's one there, and there are two a little offset, but this one doesn't exist. It's shifted over a little bit. What I'll end up doing with this, because there technically is a little break right here in the panel where this is two separate pieces, what I'll do is just combine these two pieces for simplicity, but then you can slide it out, kind of tilt it a little and pull it out, because this is a little lip. It's probably less than an inch right there. We'll see how that goes, and if we need to, we can cut the piece right here. Well, thinking is the best I have right now, so we're gonna go with that. I made some adjustments to the CAD model to remove this screw, add these two screws right here, as well as these two right here, removing this screw. So I can fix this how it goes in real life. That looks pretty good, and go from there. This 3M spray adhesives works super well. I like how the nozzle actually kind of combs in a line instead of a circle, if that makes sense. I really like this stuff, and now I'm actually going to recommend it, not just because it's the cheapest I could find. With this panel, I think the holes are a little bit off, so I'm gonna go move them from this hole to right here. I think it's about only a few millimeters of a difference, but we're still gonna move it so that it's in the right place. Another problem is that this cut is a little bit too close for comfort. I don't want to cut a little extra like this and then have this cut visible from the outside. But since the instrument panel is going to cover it up, I could actually cut all the way wonky over here if I want. This is just a baseline that should give us enough space for the fuses. So let's cut our entry hole and go. I'm going to cut another entry point over here just so I don't accidentally cut off these notches. That's alright. This is probably like $3 of plywood. So these cutouts right here with the little circles, I think they really make sense on the flap handle over here because the flap handle is super compact and you don't want to waste any space. But over here on the fuse panel, I think it's actually a waste of effort to cut these little notches. You're perfectly fine without cutting the notches. That's my train of thought toot toot right now. We'll figure it out if it's actually worth the effort later when we install the fuses. Do we need that big of a diameter for the fuse? Maybe, maybe not. We'll figure it out. But yeah. Keep in mind, this is the support panel, not the instrument panel. The instrument panel is acrylic, so it looks all pretty and stuff. Right here, this enunciator, I need to cut it so that the screw can support it, but the screen isn't there, so we have space for the screen. This is going to make this substantially weaker, so I'm going to look into reinforcing this area right here all the way down, just because it's going to be super weak. It's probably the first place that's going to break when, not if, I drop it. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, it could be cut a little more up here. We'll mark that out, and around these edges it looks like. Bye!
This is as far as I can practically get without ruining anything. I don't want to drill too many holes I don't have completely figured out, because if I change them, there's no going back. I don't want to cut too much. And this week, I'd like to say a humongous thank you to the Patreons. Now we have a new Patreon, Similar, and I'd like to thank the existing Patreon, David. So thank you so much, Patreon supporters, for helping support the show and keep it running. Thank you for letting me break jigsaw bits. I'm not doing it intentionally. Your support on Patreon really helps me make stupid mistakes and recover from them, and it also helps the show keep running. YouTube thinks you should watch this video right here, and YouTube is basically always right. And I think you should watch this playlist if you haven't already, about the flight simulator project, and or this video right here about how to wire things to a flight simulator. I hope you have a fantabulous rest of your day. Hope you enjoy your instrument panel support, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.